another random thought. I'm doing it in the background, right? Regular. So the conversation is a discussion of you with somebody, but you feel like they thinking of someone else. First and foremost, that's a feeling. That's one. Two is they thinking of someone else. Why? How come? How is that humanly possible? One has to think about that. One has to really look into oneself about that. If this is example, if I'm dealing with you and I feel like you're thinking about somebody else, I'm not about to evaluate the somebody else. I'm going to evaluate myself. That's just that simple. Males and females have a glitch in a matrix with this. It's just that simple. I'm with you, but I'm thinking about somebody else. Why? People don't think about that. Thought is powerful. And so thought still has prevalence over reality. No matter how we like to look at it. Period. You could be in a relationship with an individual meets another individual, but they constantly thinking about the other individual. Why? Because there's a difference between you and that individual. So therefore, you would have to think of the difference. The issue is, what level is the difference on? Is it a physical difference? Is it a spiritual difference? Is it an emotional difference? What is the difference? You can raise your frequency to that difference, but is it natural? The difference is always gonna be a natural gravitation. And this is why I say, as males dealing with females, or as females dealing with males, that there's no pressure. You have individuals that deal with the difference physically, emotionally, mentally, and then spiritually. Those are the differences. The higher frequency is the spiritual difference. So, yeah, I might be with you because of physical difference, because of emotional difference. Yet, I still will be with you. The other individual will be with you, spiritual difference. So, people have to understand that there's a difference. And so, there's no pressure. For the person that has the mind to understand that there's a spiritual difference. When you're talking about the spiritual difference, you talk about the genetic difference, the natural energy difference. So therefore, it trumps the physical and the emotional difference, regardless. So let's say, I'm not speaking about myself, but I'm just saying in general. Let's just use example. I can be with the individual physically, have no spiritual connection to him, no genetic connection to him, no astral connection to him. Yet, the individual that's not physically with him can have a spiritual connection and an astral connection to him. Who wins? Is it the physical? No, you're physically pleased, but you still have not reached that height. And so you null and void. And so there's no argument. And this is why I say that males and females should not fight, fuss, or argue over the opposite sex. What are you fighting for? What are you fussing for? You're looking for the natural connection. And that comes in during birth. Period. It can't be tampered with. It can't be tampered with. So let's use me for example. I'm single by myself, but I still have natural connections. There's physical connections that's going to try to block my natural connection. You can't block it. Regardless, you can be with the individual that I'm supposed to be with physically, but emotionally and spiritually, I'm still there, and it can't be shook. This is what people have to understand, and this is not a competition thing. This is a reality thing when you understand life on plateaus, on different levels. You have to understand that love exists on the physical level, on the mental level, on the emotional level, and on a spiritual level. The spiritual level always has precedence over the last three. Period. Now, outside of, a sexual relationship, we can talk about just general fatherly and daughterly relationships, or motherly and son relationships. These are spiritual relationships. They can't be tampered with, and when they are tampered with, all hell breaks loose. It don't matter whose reality that we are in, all hell breaks loose. So therefore, we have to understand the terminology of father, and most people don't. I'm not going to get into it. That's why I left it for Bible fantasy. At the end of the day, I don't, or you don't ever have to physically touch your twin. Genetically, your twin. I never have to touch him, or she never has to touch him, or he never has to touch her. The universe gravitates in that way. And this is how wicked it is. Physically, I'm attracted to this individual, and that's cool. And because I'm physically attracted to that individual, the universe is going to play its game and is going to put the energy there. Those who are unconscious of that energy, they're going to play that game. Those who are conscious of that energy, they're going to remove their energy so that they can understand that, listen, that's physical. This is spiritual. This is mental. This is emotional. Higher conglomerate. Period. And so, this is why I always say to people, there's no fuss. Period. I have no fuss. I'm not physically, let's just use example. I'm not physically with him. It's cool. Because the planets line up in such a way that my energy gonna be with him. You not even valid physically. And this is how the universe work. The universe states simply, the physical plane is the physical plane, the mental plane is the mental plane, the emotional plane is the emotional plane, and it can't be tampered with. It cannot be tampered with. No matter how we look at it, it can't be tampered with. Even when we dealing with spiritual systems, you're dealing with Ifa, Santeria, Christianity, Islam, so on and so forth. It can't be tampered with. It can't be tampered with. Now, one can try to tap into it, but is it valid? No, it's not valid. There's natural connections that take place, and therefore there's no force. The physical aspect of it all is force. So this is why I say I'd rather be smart than to be beautiful, versus beautiful and can't be smart. You can be as beautiful as you want and be dumb as a fucking doorbell. Or you can be smart. Now, the reason why smart outweighs beautiful is because if you're smart, then you are able to gradually progress into beauty. Period. If you came in with beauty with no smarts, you can't. Are you gradually progressing? People don't think about that. I came in beautiful. Am I going to gradually progress into smarts? Or I didn't come in beautiful, but I gradually progressing to smarts. People have to think about that. It's a duality in everything that we do and everything that we say and everything that we think and everything that we feel and everything that we experience. And that's pound period. There's beautiful men or gorgeous men and beautiful women stupid as a motherfucker. And then there's the group of individuals that quote unquote are not so beautiful. Whether they are masculine or feminine, that progress with knowledge and still ends up beautiful or gorgeous. How does that work? People have to think. People have to think. If there is if the lower vibration of the devil or the lower vibration of Satan came and offered me everything, I'm going to reject it. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's something that's just being given based upon what I'm willing to give back. Mind you, in the natural realm, which people fear the most, it's not all the other realms. It's the natural realm that most people fear, right? Naturally, genetically, I'm going to always be smart. And so I have a choice and I have an option whether I want to be beautiful or not. People usually choose the option of beauty because that's physical and it brings that physical attraction. Other people that's aware and conscious, they choose other because I want a natural, or that individual wants a natural connection. Period. People don't understand this. Naturally, think about how marriage works. There's two types of marriages. I'm marrying you based off what you are worth, what you have, what you can produce, or what you have produced, and so on and so forth. And then there's a marriage based off what I know you are worth, what you can produce, and what we can build. Those are the differences. Those are the differences. So, in my reality, there's no fight. I'm speaking about my reality. There's no fight. Because anything that I see that's worth, I'm going to see you from the bottom up, not the top down. I'm going to see you from the bottom up. And this is what people have a problem with. Like I said in a previous video, power is to see an individual at nothing and see everything at the same time. If you cannot see nothing and see everything at the same time, then you don't have that glow right. You don't have that glow right. I can put me into nothing. If you all see nothing, then I can't deal with you. The individual that sees nothing and sees everything is what I gravitate towards. So this is what we have to think about. This is power. Powerful people see nothing and see everything at the same time. People who lack power feel like, oh, you have to be everything already before I can acknowledge everything. No. Power is to see nothing and see everything at the same time. And that's all within humanity and in a blade of grass, dirt, whatever. If I see you as nothing and still can see everything, then I am within the all. We are within the all. The all saw nothing and saw everything at the same time, and so that everything was produced. Think about that. The all saw nothing, complete darkness, and saw everything at the same time, and then life was produced. So if we are humanity and we cannot see nothing and see all at the same time, then we didn't reach that plateau. It's just that simple. This is what I understand, and this is the shock value in what I see. People see violence, they see this in the art, they see this in music, they see that, and so on and so forth. Again, power is to see nothing and see everything at the same goddamn time. When we are able to see nothing and see everything at the same time, then we'll understand a neutral point that's conducive for everybody on the planet. Outside of that, it's always going to be ruckus. Everybody has to always go back to the natural beginnings. In the beginning, there was nothingness. There was darkness. There was the face of the deep, right? And then the all saw everything and was able to create physical reality. And this is why I don't pay people no mind. It's not because I'm oblivious. It's because there's levels to this shit. I'm not oblivious. It's literal levels to this shit. And when you get to these levels, it brings certain levels of shock value to an individual, regardless of how we like to call it or not. You can call it Christ, you can call it Allah, you can call it Aldumari, you can call it Buddha, you can call it, whomever you want to call it. The reality of it all is the shock value and the understanding that in order for the physical plane to even exist, nothing was first and something had to identify and say something exists. People don't think about that. And so this has to be thought about. And so this then reproduces not only in the planetary bodies, but it also produces in the physical reality, period. Which is why I did the symbolism on, different symbols in the Masonic symbol, because it shows the as above, so below. Period. Is there a such thing as nothingness? Obviously not. Because if you can see everything and nothing, that lets you know that there's no such thing as nothingness. If you can map the planetary bodies to the actual mind, then that lets you know that there's no such thing as nothingness. Now, people's going to say this is not reality, this is this, that, blah, blah, blah. But they said that about a lot of individuals. Because every individual that came to this reality, they stated was crazy because they was not able to raise their frequency to that status all the way back to, before Admiral Byrd, let's say. And this is why I put these posts up so that people can think. People can think. Why did Tesla duplicate everything that he did? Why would Tesla do that? Why would Tesla walk around the building 2 times or several times? Why would he do that? Why would he do that? Because he understood things on a different realm. He understood things on a different realm. And so they stated that he was crazy. Right? But did they state that Thoth was crazy or that Ra was crazy? No. Every single system still speaks of the S-U-N, the sun. They still speak of that. And so we have to go into that. We have to go into that. Regardless of the fact of how we like it or whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And this is why we're going to go into the situation of Pluto in a little while, even though it's a little bit extended. Because even in the concept of Pluto, I've come to realize that Pluto still had to acknowledge the sun, right? Outside of acknowledging the sun, Pluto still, there are scientists that have claimed that Pluto is the dwarf planet. Pluto states that I am not. And so when I look through scripture and I look through, through the Quran and stuff like that, I realize that numerically, Pluto existed. Period. Man didn't identify Pluto until 1930, but numerically, Pluto actually existed. And this is why I say that Ifa is fire for me. I like Ifa. Because Ifa deals with the ones and zeros of the universe. E5 deals with the ones and zeros of the universe, and so therefore it lets you know that computers is secondary, technology is secondary. It's nothing new under the sun, literally, because I'm able to identify Pluto numerically in biblical text and in Islamic text and then in numerology and astrology and so on and so forth. And they all state that numerically Pluto is there. They all state that numerically Pluto was there, but man did not identify it until 1930. So we have to look at that. And so maybe that's why the energy and the vibration and the things associated with Pluto turns up, because man did not identify until 1930. Yet there's spiritual texts that state that Pluto is in existence before that, whether we like it or not, and that's numerically. So therefore, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing new under the sun. And that's why it's still E5 for me, because it's still nothing new under the sun. Because when they can deal with the ones and zeros of the universe before computers existed, and I love computers, but before computers existed, and they can still deal with the ones and zeros and still identify these planetary bodies and how they associate with the physical body and colors and vibrate, then we have a problem. Because it lets us know that computer has not outweighed the natural mind once again, bringing us into all of the other subjects of World War III and the presidency and so on and so forth. It brings us into all these things, and numerically we have a problem. We have a glitch in the matrix, and we have to work it out, period. So shout out to all of the spiritualists. There's spiritualists that's going to keep it 100, and there's spiritualists that's bored. And this is on every level outside of spirituality. There's music, there's art, there's poetry, there's industry. To be bored is a sad thing. Physically, it looks nice. Spiritually, it's unattractive. I'm just saying. When we dismiss how vibration affects us physically and try to replace that with the shock value of money, then we have a problem. Now, I'm saying this from all aspects. Literally. I'm saying this from all aspects. Because in order for you to understand this, you have to understand the low, the medium, and the high. So you have to understand poverty. You have to understand middle class. Think about that. Low, medium, high. So you got the low class, the middle class, and the high class. Low, medium, high. And this even associates in numerology and numbers. People have to think about that. Low class, middle class, and high class. Low numbers, mid numbers, and high numbers. You have to think about that. So we have to come to this understanding where it should not have no control over our vibration. And this is why I put a post on Facebook that said, surprisingly, Uncle did not speak to me about happiness being a state of mind. Happiness is the higher vibration because that's granted to us upon birth. And so we have to realize that. When we forget that is when we lose our connection to the all. It's granted to all of us, no matter what our spiritual system is, upon birth. That's that. Now, being that happiness is a particular state of mind and a perspective, that means that one can be happy in the lower class, the middle class, and the high class. Now, does that mean get stuck? It doesn't mean get stuck. Happiness doesn't allow stuck. The adversary of happiness will create roadblocks to maintain or create this stuck vibration, but is it valid? Once a man has identified their happiness based upon how much money they have, and I've had to come to realize that They are a fail. As humanity, men has become a fail. Whether that's men or women, men has become a fail. Once we've allowed a system to come into place and take over us to determine how we see reality based on how much money we have, then we have lost control on the planetary value and or the planetary plane, and this is where we have a problem. Because in reality, there's people that have less that's happier than you, healthier than you, and is gonna live longer than you in real life. And that's the shock of value. You can go out into nowhere, which we would consider nowhere because we in the system. So we can go out into nowhere and people are living their happiest life. This is how you know that it's a mindset. They're living their happiest life with less than everybody on the planet. Literally. Less than everybody on the planet. But they're happier, they're healthier, and they're more balanced, and they're still more in tune with the universe and the earth than everybody else. So what's the argument? There's no argument. And this is not to say, oh, well, Sky has a loss of finances. No, this is reality. If you go out into the Congo and find natural individuals that have no connection to this system right here, they're still happy, they're still healthy, they still live longer than everybody else. And genetically, they are still more attached to the universe and the earth than we are. So therefore, we have a problem. They don't have a problem. We have the problem. They don't have the problem. Because if all hell breaks loose, they still are going to survive versus everybody else that become codependent on this particular system. And this is what the elite know that they're not going to tell you. And so the elite try to replicate that artificially, and it holds no weight. It holds no weight. People have to think about that. It's a possible World War III. And in that World War III, that possible World War III, there's a conglomerate of group of individuals that's already been mentally programmed, emotionally programmed, physically programmed, and spiritually programmed to protect the individuals that's not even concerned about anything associated with them or their bloodlines or their natural lines. Or you understand how this is going? Understand how this is going. And this is why I said World War III is a no-go. It's a bad idea altogether. And technically, if we want to think about World War III according to what I did the numerology on, World War III has already been in place before man or people in the system have even had recognition of it. Period. Because we have to think. We go out into the Congo. We go out into, places where the indigenous are. They don't be concerned about a goddamn cold. They're not concerned about COVID. They're not concerned about sickle cell. They're not concerned about any of these because it does not exist in their reality. It doesn't become a part of their reality until we come out of our system, go into their system and say it exists. Vaccines don't even exist in their reality, and it doesn't become a part of their reality until we come out of our system, go into their system and say vaccines is valid. And this is what we have to think about. Does it mean that we are not advancing? No, we should advance as humanity, but we have not come to this understanding that advancing as humanity requires us to come to a neutral point where, the higher ups have access to said technology and abilities. And they have to have this heart chakra to say this access is for everybody on the planet. The moment that is not for everybody on the planet is the moment that all hell breaks loose. And this is why we experience solar eclipses. This is why, solar eclipse is going to come into place. But we experience the shaking of the earth. We experience war. We experience anger. We experience death. It comes from up, all the way up there, all the way up there, all the way down here. It's a trickling in real life. And so there's this duality. Even if you want to go get minuscule into gang banging, there's a duality. There's always this red, this blue, this yellow, this black. People have to understand how this shit go. You have to understand how it go. Period. And a lot of people don't understand how it goes, so therefore they end up going against their own. So they say, the person that's in power can turn everybody against one individual. No, you're weak. You don't have no power because you're not standing on your own thoughts and your own intuition and your own heart chakra. Somebody was able to manipulate you against. The one person that you come against as a conglomerate, as a group, that person usually is not coming against you. And you can look at this in spiritual text. Did Christ come against all of humanity? Christ consciousness didn't come against all of humanity. It argued logic versus non-logic. Christ said that everybody is the son of God. How are you not? The sun exists. And because it exists, you exist. And this happens in Islam, this happens in Ifa, this happens in Santeria, and so on and so forth. This happens in Buddhism. And this is why I posted that. This even happens in Masonry. This happens in all the secret societies. And this is why, the higher ups is looking at everybody like y'all are retarded. Because, yeah, you might touch a couple of million, but they are experiencing reality on a whole nother plateau that you don't even know. So therefore, you think you experiencing plateau. Oh, you got a Lambo, you got a mansion, you got this and it. All right, and they saying, listen, I done discovered pieces of the earth that you don't even know exist, and I'm sitting here with a mansion over here that nobody's filing taxes on, nothing. People have to think about that. I think about that all the time. And so because I'm a female that think about that, this is my complexion, I'm a female that think about that on every level. And my arm tells you that. My arm tells you that. I think about this on every level in real life. So my arm tells you that, yet my mind tells you that. We have to think about that. And this is why people who have this level of consciousness get broken down. And this is from Harlem all the way to the South. They get broken down because we have that level of consciousness and understand it. Period. And that level of consciousness makes us question things as a people. And that scares that conglomerate, that small circle of individuals or group or families. They scared. This is why all of this technology is in place. They scared. They scared of the uprising of the mind because they know that it's natural to the solar system. And they understand that and they have to respect that, and there's nothing they can do about that. Now, we have to look at the individuals that don't look like us, that stand behind it. Is it valid, or is it because they're trying to gravitate toward us? We have to think about that. I don't sleep on nobody. We have to think about that. And for me to have to think about that, let me tell you, I had several shock values in my lifespan. And I haven't even been here that long, but I've had several shock values, whether it be loss, gain, or just reality. Several shock values that most people that claim to be wealthy or rich, they don't even tap into that level of shock value. Period. And the duality of it all is that you drop one. You either drop so low that you have to identify with reality, or you go so high that you have to identify with reality. But the middle is a mix of both, and a lot of people get stuck in the middle. I'm not one of them. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. We're going to still talk about Pluto. I'm breaking it down because it's taking me a little bit longer because I'm dealing with the Christian view of Pluto and the Islamic view of Pluto and the E5 view of Pluto and the numerology aspect of Pluto, and so it kind of threw me for a spin. Deuces.